It's time for the Overwatch League APAC knockouts to continue. Welcome, everyone. We're live here at the WDG Esports studio. It's Lemon Kiwi, it's leg day, bringing you Group A. And we're sending 4 teams home, staying home, out of the bracket with no chance of making play-ins or playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be a real sad day for a bunch of teams, but someone's got to go, Lemon, because someone must rise. And of course, we are going to be sending a couple of teams to the grand finals going on over in Toronto. It's going to be such an exciting time for every Overwatch League fan. And there is still a mathematical chance for a contenders team, rather than one of our OWL franchises could make it. I think at the moment, mathematically, Dreamers and O2 Blast have the best chance of making that happen. And Dreamers, speaking of which, will be coming up in our first game today. So you're going to be able to see exactly who might be able to make a true Cinderella run through our esport.
Ooh, excited for today. Lower bracket quarterfinals for anyone who hasn't caught the schedule yet. We got Panthera, Dreamers, Rhodes, and Poker Face for our Group A matches. Loser of that is out of the tournament. No chance making playoffs. And then Charge versus Seoul. Shanghai versus SPG on Group B. Those are also going to be some bangers. And we know how those teams are faring so far.
Yeah.
Some good, some bad.
It's an uncomfortable place to be for Seoul Dynasty, who did fairly well last year, but this year it's just been seemingly problem after problem for that roster. Guangzhou Charge, of course, started off the year incredibly well, and since then have had a little bit of an incidental rebuild, bringing Jinmu and Gaga from a deceased Chengdu Hunters back over, and maybe they can try and find some purchase here, but it's always weird to see a team like Seoul Dynasty with Profit on it languishing. Like, Profit, come on, man. Can't you just carry, like, 1v9 in the lobby? Like, people call you the GOAT, and for what?
Just wheeling in like, I still got it. I still got it. Get me in there. I'll show
I got one more in me.
I got one more. And, well, Rhodes also got one more roster. A completely new, retooled one. The Chinese super team kind of gone, and to be fair, they didn't do that bad for a team that kind of just got constructed together. That's our second match.
Yeah, when Rhodes just turns up, and all of us are like, okay, that's not Rhodes. Well, they're Rhodes now.
Who vented onto this Rhodes roster?
Truly, just a bunch of new guys turned up. I believe mostly well-known tier 2 players from around the Korean scene. So there's definitely some talent on this roster that can make a couple of issues. Of course, they're going up against a far more well-formed, I would say, roster in Poker Face. Not in that they're better players, but they've had a lot more time together to make sure that their strats are a little bit more crystallized. Of course, Muse was a near world beater on the Los Angeles Gladiators during his time there, and before that even was excelling on Talon. So a lot of competitive history for Muse, and hoping to have a little bit of a redemption arc here as we move over to see what's been happening so far in our brackets. Fuel versus Spark, that's going to be coming up tomorrow. That's going to be an absolute banger. Real looking forward to it.
Fuel at the peak of their success. You know, it's fluctuating metas for them. Sometimes they're number one, and sometimes they don't win. It really happens sometimes to them. Poker Face on the rise too, beating Panthera, putting them in this quarterfinal, lower bracket quarterfinal situation. Rhodes in a similar situation against Dreamers, but Dreamers fell to a very strong-looking Hangzhou Spark, who are fighting for either number 1 or number 2 in the entire league. But a team that, well, used to be at kind of a top spot is Dreamers, who have their roster picked apart. Mainly their DPS of EasyHunt and Spectre got promoted. Even Spectre's going for Rookie of the Year. So it's like, man, Dreamers promoted a lot of amazing talent, and they should be happy.
Yeah, they're going to be happy for those that have been promoted, but also maybe a touch of salt. But like, hey, if we had our old DPS, we might be sweeping this bracket. Still, they're making a good concerted effort, and Dreamers still have a chance of making it all the way to Toronto. They can make that miracle run happen. It's a good look at Group B. O2 Blast have been strangely resurgent. Protect in particular, this is his meta. No longer having to languish on the Winston, which is not his best hero. Being able to flex over onto a Junker Queen. Same as Hanbin. He's thriving in a new meta where Winston is far from mandatory. And here's your matchups for today. It's going to be a long one, so make sure that you've grabbed your coffee and you've got your Snuggie ready, because you're going to be here a while.
I'm wondering how the O2 Blast guys are doing. A lot of them got promoted to Vegas Eternal, trying to quite literally breathe life into that team. So Will the former talent of O2 Blast be able to do that in the Overwatch League? They had tremendous success on the Contenders roster before, and it's tough for Contenders players to come up in such a different ecosystem and against totally different competition and prove that they're the best. But excited to see what Knife and the boys on O2 can do. But even since then, the replacements have not done too bad. But let's focus on our first match now, Panthera versus Dreamers.
Yeah, I want to focus in on some players here. In particular, Becky is a real X factor for this team. Becky's got a little bit of competitive history in Overwatch League to be LA Valiant during, some might say they're ill-fated last season before moving back over to the West. But I think that Becky and EasyHan were always highlights of that roster and always showing off that they had the mechanical skill to bring some of the best teams in the world to the brink. And we, of course, have Do, who is a newer addition to this roster, usually swapping out with Nice, depending on what hit scanners prefer. We've seen a lot of Do Tracer recently, a little bit of Torbjorn as well, I believe. So Panthera really are leaning on their rookie here to try and deliver them some results in very high-pressure scenarios.
Yeah, Panthera come in as a 7th seed from the qualifiers. Not like the top when it comes to contenders, but I thought they did a pretty good job of adapting from meta to meta. They had this Jasmine RPen tank situation once Fate got promoted, and Jasmine has come in on the 2 last maps of their last series, playing a lot of Ramatra, Sigma, someone that you can rely on, which sometimes off tanks when you don't get that much play time, you don't have the experience. But RPen and Jasmine trading off really well there. You just got to have an overall star-studded roster. Speaking of which, against Dreamers, this is a tough one. This has been the highest seeded contenders team, even outranking 2 Overwatch League teams and Dragons in Charge.
Yeah, it's been a great run thus far from Dreamers, of course. The eponymous main tank in the middle there, Dreamer himself, formerly of the LA Valiant, but a much earlier iteration in their last year in the West. It was Packing 10's LA Valiant, which also hosted Kai, I believe, or KSP as he was known at the time. It was a fantastic roster, and Dreamer definitely showed that he had a lot of chops as the Reinhardt. And I'm going to be looking towards Dreamer's Reinhardt prowess, in particular in this matchup. We can assume that it's likely going to be a Reinhardt rollout here, as Dreamers have actually been leaning a lot more on their off-tank in Liga. Like you said, RPen and Jasmine on the other side, the same can be said for Dreamers. They have 2 incredibly effective tanks, but are very much split into the main tank, off-tank distinction that we had in old Overwatch. And League has been able to flex a lot of his hero pool. The Diva, the Doomfist, the Junker Queen, they've all been a big part of the potential Liga clutch scenarios. But at the moment, I'm going to be zooming in on that flex DPS. Top Dragon, you can get away with a Genji in this meta. And Top Dragon is one heck of a Genji. He absolutely pounds the lobby when he picks up the younger Shimada.
He can get away with murder, and he has several times. He's
Your
a
Honor.
serial killer out there on the Genji. Solo carries on Suravasa. I've seen it with my own eyes. And Dreamer finally getting a start in this meta where Leaguer, I feel bad for the guy because going into double flanker, a Sombra constantly hacking your butt when you're a diva is just unfun. And Leaguer got player of the match last time I casted him because this is his meta to shine. A lot of Orisa though, a lot of diva too, which is his specialty. And now Dreamers can lean on him to really break out of that shell now that he's not getting hacked all the time.
Not getting hacked all the time is a happy time. Yeah, like, I don't think we saw a single map of Dreamer in week 1. Of course, like you saw in the graphic, he's going to be starting today, so a slightly different look from Dreamers. Maybe acclimatizing to what was a pretty brutal loss to the Hangzhou Spark. He played a little bit more of the old style. They still believe in the old gods, the Winston, and the dive alongside it was their bread and butter. But for Dreamers, like you said, the Orisa is definitely one of the characters which is rising to prominence. She's incredibly strong at the moment, has a huge amount of survivability, especially with that Fortify as well, denying headshots, which can be a real pain. One of the reasons why Orisa wasn't as played at the Overwatch League level is, like, everyone here can aim, and when you've got a headshot hitbox the size of Canada, turns out that's a bit of a weakness.
Speaking of aimers, Develop, former DPS, we've talked about this before, moving to support because guess what? We got a 3rd DPS. Her name is Alari, and Develop has been yapping people, support players, you know, kind of cheating. He is a DPS on Alari, but seen playing a lot of Ana if they don't opt for that poke comp. We go to Lijiang Tower first, where, guess why we got Dreamer in here? It's a Rhine map.
Oh yeah, this is a map where Ryan can flourish. Ever since Lijiang Tower has kind of come into the 4 of the meta, and since Symmetra got her rework from a time long ago when Teleporter was an ultimate that could be interchanged with Shield Generator, we have seen the conflict of Teleporter and Rhine to try and dominate Lijiang Tower. It's an excellent map for high mobility to be afforded to the guy with the hammer to just cleave through enemies, and that's, of course, why we are going to be seeing Dreamer come in. Arpen is likely to match this. We've seen plenty of Arpen Reinhardt, even on Oasis, which is not as geographically favorable to the Reinhardt, apart from University. And of course, as you can see from our blacked out maps here, we are in loser picks, no longer in map sets as you'd see in the regular season of Overwatch League. So both of these teams, after losing a map, can try and pick the next to play more to their strengths or potentially their opponent's weaknesses.
You don't want to lose too many of those. It's a best of 5 lower quarterfinal, everybody. Loser is out of the tournament and loses their chance to go to play-ins. Panthera, they lost that, well, Oasis University, that Reinhardt map, but it was against Dive, and it was a lot of May and Symmetra. Now, this is an interesting look out of Panthera, not with the Rhine, but with the Junker Queen, having 2 options of speed, and Top Dragon, though, just unloading on the Bastion, dealing with Becky on the opposition, removing a huge source of DPS, and then you let Dreamer, well, send some nightmares over to Panthera. He cannot be stopped.
Dreamer's been allowed to do everything he wants and a little bit more on top of that. Critically there, we saw Top Dragon actually bring out the tank form first. Becky was caught somewhat unawares and had to give a reactive tank form without being able to use cover, because of course you have a lower movement speed while in that form. And think about the tank versus tank matchup here too. Dreamer's got a lot more tools to try and shut down that Bastion's tank form when it is necessary, using the Javelin spin.
Kind of a bait TP there from Dew. Place it right on the other side of the pillar. Looks like Arpen still took it. You got Panthera having some coast control too with many angles. Dreamer throwing some javelins in to just kind of distance Panthera supports away from Arpen, who is now taking so much poke, and Dreamer decides to just engage right into the rest of Arpen's team and ignore that tank. Slay now just trying to reposition that front line, but the damage has been done. Dreamer's Ant Matrix just laid on the damage, and Panthera could not really hold on.
Top Dragon has been lost there. This could be a little bit of an issue, but if Slay is going to be staggered, yeah, that's going to be all they need to make sure that Top Dragon gets back in time. Now Sad's going to be able to try and play here with the Photon Barrier, but it's not going to be a reliable counter for the Rampage that Arpen has available. So what you're really looking for here is for Missing to have an early Immortality Field forced out. It's going to be one of the main counters available to those mass anti-beats.
Also got Arpen ready with Rampage to line up all those pins, and you see the Dreamers are ready. They're hiding away. Arpen needing some heals. What? Oh, that double kill even with the immortality from Top Dragon. The missiles come down, and Panthera are missing in action with one more fight even for Dreamers to take a flawless control center.
In the midst of all that, a Rampage as well. I'm not sure what Arpen was cooking with it, but Panthera, they can come back now with 4 ultimates. And open here with the artillery squeezing through the door. Up against the TP is going to complicate matters. Sad still manages to survive. There's double support as well here for Dreamers. They can hold on the point for as long as they wish.
It's a good set of ults for Panthera, splitting up the point, using some of it to protect Arpen. Now Duel's really close, and Dreamers tried their best, and they did play off the Ant Matrix. They had the sound barrier, but Panthera just invested more and killed quicker, giving them a chance to somehow make that 0-100 comeback.
You talked about a fake TP in an earlier fight, Lemon, and Panthera actually paid dividends off that by taking the TP this time, conditioning Dreamers to not give as much attention to it, and it means that Arpen can hit a knife onto Top Dragon and pull him into the LOS of the window put down by Develop, meaning a huge amount of damage comes down on that Bastion. They can't do anything. Now it's Soundbarrier versus Soundbarrier, but Panthera have this defensive positioning to work with.
So much damage into Dreamers. Dada has to pop the sound barrier. Father's here for you, but Panthera counter with their own. Top Dragon in trouble, somehow frontlining even out of his turret form. When the rest of Dreamers were disengaging, Panthera happy that the chaos hurt Dreamers that bad. They buy themselves another fight.
Talked about a tank matchup before, how Dreamer's better at mitigating the Bastion damage, but better at killing the Bastion is Arpen. That knife, so easy to hit on a massive hitbox like a Bastion. He doesn't have mobility options after using that grenade to try and get away from the damage. And his hitbox is so big, he just gets eviscerated by Panthera.
Server control of Panthera. Sad got a little too excited off of the speed there. Immortality to save Top Dragon too. This is top Rampage right through 3 anti. Dreamers don't know where to look to the the left, to the right, you cross the street, you get run over by Arpen and Panthera. Another fight in a row, coming down to the final one to win Control Center.
Potentially preemptive immortality field there by missing. Was punished. And now as you try and approach this, it's going to be very difficult to try and avoid the artillery strikes coming in from Becky. We saw last time it got a double onto an unaware Dreamers who were lacking mobility options. You can see that Becky right now seeing plenty through the walls. The ping's coming through from Arpen, and you've got to try and make a dash for the point now.
Yeah, artillery, sometimes you can catch a squishy. It splits up Dreamers for a moment. Now, Photon Bear after Photon Bear. Nobody can really move past it or get close to it. Artillery from the side of Dreamers bombards Panthera, forces out the Immortality. All the space for Dreamers. A Terror Surge going in. Immortality can't save you now! Double kill! Dreamer makes the fight winnable. But Panthera managed to get the flip, and over time, in their favor, Becky trying to secure that server control. And now it's the flip back to Panthera's side. It's actually Dreamers that had control. I apologize. Now, in a 3 versus 2, Dreamers get all the kills with their Bastion still alive, but Slay contesting for as much as he can. Emergency Duke Fist from Arpen is on the field, but the support is just too far away. But what an almost comeback that happened there from Panthera, only ending though at 99.
Yeah, the comeback was close, but the Terror Surge just got too many people caught in it. I think 4 people got sucked into the center. And while it's rare for it to guarantee that many kills, there was already significant damage onto both Arpen and Do, so didn't need to charge up the Terror Surge that thoroughly in order to make it happen. Just look at how this artillery strike got too... It was off a stun. Dreamer does waste his ultimate after, but you know what? You set that up so well with the Javelin. I'll forgive you, bud.
What a hard-fought battle when Dreamers just lost that many fights in a row, having such a good start at 99. Just coming down to a really good patience off the Photon barriers. Vanquishing at the end. Bastion gap. Now, the TP is not being set up toward the point, but Dreamers use their TP to fake actually the point rotation, not being worried about Panthera's position. Now, Bastion of Becky is going to shred this Dreamer shield, and they need to act quickly or wait for it to regenerate. They vote for the latter.
Up and on the off angle here. Might be somewhat easier to try and isolate, but with all of this cover to play with at the back of the point, this is going to be so much better for Panthera. Dreamers actually have to back off here, and that means Dreamers going to spend so long trying to recharge the shield and simply trying to kite away from the tank form of the Bastion.
I can see them waiting for Sad's teleporter if that's how they want to close the gap, but they just run in, and now Panthera are split. Dada then wall rides, boots Do off the map, and you can't be playing that close to the edge against Dada. Panthera thought they were more safe than they were. Now the Amp Matrix generated so quickly from Missing after how much Bastion artillery they took that early in the fight. Dreamers, that patience pays off, and they were able to gap close against a lot of damage from Panthera.
Yeah, great tactical flexibility there from Dreamers. Like we said, when you play towards the back, there's a lot of cover to play with. It can allow you to avoid damage, but it's a double-edged sword. You do risk getting booped off, and Dada sees that opportunity, finds Do overextended, gets him off the map, and after that, it means Dreamers so free to try and just run on to the Bastion after that tank form's already been used. An amplification matrix here in conjunction with the Bastion damage could prove deadly if only it can be set up.
Dreamer wants to stay on the top track. Is just hitting
you ain't
himself
TPing
with
nowhere, bro.
Make you think twice. No, Dreamer is charging in. Didn't get the pin onto the Bastion as he would hope. He's in a bad spot. He gets antied by the rampage of Arpen, but not a sound barrier. Bought enough time for Dreamer to rotate back to the safety of the point. Now the re-engage off of Sad, charging up with the Symmetra, overwhelms Panthera. It's just been a chess match of kings and queens being exchanged, but it's Dreamers that live on.
What a clutch barrier there from Dada. Dream was 50 HP, but Dada didn't know if he wanted to put in the sound barrier until Arpen used the rampage, which went for, I ain't holding this for anything else, bro. Do instantly wants to go in. Wall is available, but Dreamer is already returned and cleaving.
I guess was gonna pin Becky off the map. Turrets are burned. The Shatter was taking so much pressure that had to bring the shield back up, and Arpen protects his backline as best as he could. Panthera back in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I think Sad actually got caught out during a stagger for Dreamers, and that meant that Panthera had the option to try and make a somewhat overmanned approach in a 4 versus 5, and it worked out here. Now you can hold a little bit closer. This means that you've got to try and maybe navigate around the Junker Queen, but Arpen will give up the space knowing that they're likely to be TP'd on here by Sad. Dreamer's going to benefit from that burst mobility quite a bit.
The Photon Bearer used. Panthera have good defensive control, trying to hold their side of the map, and then Becky goes uncontested. Always trying to worry about the oppositional Bastion. You take out so much damage power out of Dreamers, removing Top Dragon from the fight. That is their biggest carry. So Panthera, can they do the comeback that they did on Control Center, or will they trip up on the finish line again?
That finish line. It's certainly uneven pavement, easy to trip. And they might try and hop this one in the courtyard, as there are a couple of Symmetra teleporters set up here, as well as a disengagement TP. Just gives Arpen easy access to an early Carnage. In comes the artillery strike, and it's all across the back again.
Mortality plays just in case. Good reaction from Develop and Matrix. Becky's moved off, or, well, took himself out. Either way, Dreamers steal the point back, and it's 95+% with no one from Panthera to contest. Dreamers have been so good at getting inside this point. Arpen, double kill, the knife for the third. Is he clutching? Arpen is doing it. It's not a pen, it's a cage, it's a prison, and Dreamers are victims.
Oh my goodness, the pen is mightier than the Dreamer. What a clutch coming through from the Rampage, and just getting multiple people with the Carnage to get those cooldown resets, hitting the perfect knife onto the only person who could save that in missing with the huge heals the Baptiste could bring to bear. What a clutch! That is unbelievable. That's Hunbin level clutching right there.
This has got to be on the top 5 plays of Owl. Arpen saves the day for Panthera, comes down to the final fight. Sound barrier from Dada. Might have saved that Matrix too. Build some space between you and Panthera. They gotta respect that TP to get back to point there for Dreamers if they do opt to do so. Dude, starting to harass Dreamer, who shatters, blocks the heals away from Arpen, who gets sued, so the charge doesn't go through. Dreamer in a bad situation. Arpen getting clutch again. It's a 5-man ante, and Becky puts them all to rest. And Panthera have done it again.
Oh, who is this person? I need them identified. I need their genome sequenced for science. What a pair of clutches. Arpen, by the way, 2 fights, 2 rampages. Unbelievable. And not only that, did you see that Suzu from Develop to try and save him as well? Develop really holding their nerve on the Suzu, making sure that it wasn't going to get blocked by the shield, instead waited for Dreamer to turn around and try and deliver that burst damage, and it was an easy Suzu onto Arpen. No tripping at the finish line this time, Lemon.
The highlight reel, the slip past the door, too. To the knife on the missing. Get back here. I ain't done with you yet. To the axe. And all of that self-healing, too. That is how you clutch up. You know, we'll give some hype over to Slay, who had the rollout to get to Arpen in time. Holy crap. Whew.
Yeah, Becky also contributing using an artillery strike, but I'm enamored right now with the Arpen. This is a curious rollout. Dreamer instantly taking away as much space as possible, and this has forced Becky to move into a less effective phase after having used that tank floor. The question is, what kind of way can Panthera actually rotate around? If they're playing in the white room here, they are going to be very easily spammable by something like the grenade coming through from Top Dragon or the fire strikes.
Also, Dreamers wrote in all chat, we got the translation of how much they appreciate the Panthera plays coming out in less family-friendly words. But man, Dreamers, they got the shield broken. Now, not able to hold on to that door as closely as they would hope. Arpen and friends, a Panthera TP to the other side while pressuring the front, but didn't go with his take and is very vulnerable by themselves as a Symmetra. Panthera go for the pitch play and it's not working out. Dreamer comes in like a bulldozer, gets the trade on the Becky before he falls. And as the dust falls, I think we're left with either a 1-on-1, 2-on-2, but when Arpen's on the field, he can do a 1v100. That's how I feel.
Yeah, if you get into those dirty situations where it's like 2 versus 2, 2 versus 3, and Arpen's one of the players that's around, the self-healing that the Junker Queen has is so useful in those kind of situations. One of the things that's really cool about Top Dragon playing Bastion as well is that Top Dragon often gets some nifty nades between players and the teleporters they use to try and isolate them from the disengagement potential. But Arpen doesn't care if he can't disengage. He'll just go deeper every single time.
Well, this is good timing on the artillery. You just have to kind of get it inside this room, which is sometimes harder. Oh, but they TP away. It's like they evaporated in midair.
Where'd he go?
Houdini's artillery. Well, Dreamers live on for now, not wanting to use their artillery, which is how open that part of the map is. Photon Bearer using it in the rampage. Hits all ultimate.
And this is one of the ways where Dreamer on Orisa could have been a big detriment to Arpen's Junker Queen. Being able to interrupt that rampage potentially with a Javelin, you don't have any real options to do that as a Reinhardt. You can block it with your shield technically, but the way that your team is playing the formation, you're not going to get 5-man rampage so often. You just have to eat the L on that fight as Top Dragon opens up with artillery.
Yeah, a little bit of trickle damage. The backline of Panthera seem okay. Now the Photon Bear available for Dew to try and protect this point. He gets the Matrix. He needed it a bit quicker. You lost Becky. So much damage is gone. Depends how Dew and Arpen can play this when they had the speed and the barrier advantage. Developers couldn't keep up in the heals, and Dreamers just capitalized on that fight before the Photon Bear could come out, and now they're just cleaning things up, and they got quite a gap in the score to close.
Unfortunately there for Panthera, Becky just died far too early. You got to try and get one of those full rotations of both grenade and tank format in order to like get everyone low enough. Arpen can start finding those final blows on low health players who are playing maybe a little bit more conservatively. But now playing defensively with the Symmetra, this is what you want. Gives you plenty of time to gather information with the turrets. And Dreamer's got themselves an Earth Shatter. Remember, there's no consistent shield to try and deal with this. If everyone's playing together, Dreamer could be on the board for a 4-person Shatter.
Yeah, with the Sim TPs there, or the turrets there, from Sad, like Panthera gotta either TP on the other side, hope to get an angle. A little bit tough with the heroes you have chosen. And as Panthera go again for this pitch play of TPing to the other side, they just get cut down so quickly. Dreamers are so quick to react on this divisive fight.
And now as we head in towards the final fight, Dreamers are coming up towards a critical mass of ultimate CLM, and Arpen currently doesn't have a rampage, which means Dada can be a lot more free to use for sound barrier early. If this fight does go long though, Arpen's going to continue to be that clutch factor, especially if Dreamers find themselves run ragged by the combination of Bastion and Amplification Matrix early.
We have Matrix forcing out the mortality at the very least. Some value, Becky. See what he can do. The shatter from Dreamers, he explodes and might have got developed on his feet, but that was enough for Top Dragon to get an important kill. Not a lot of heals left for Panthera in a brawl that they need. They desperately need that sustain in. What an exciting map we've had, but Dreamers, they put Panthera to bed with now a recontest there from Arpen and Develop, and I thought Dreamers had started that fight off on their foot.
Arpen just TP'd, got the TP from the Symmetra, said, okay, you guys mess around and have your fight over here. I'm going to go in the back line once again. Develop had to swap over to Kiriko to return as quickly as possible. There's going to be a touch coming from Top Dragon, but he's so easy to kill with the Symmetra, and the Rampage is ready to go.
Sad is still coming back from spawn as a Reaper. Rampage has already for Arpen, pulling in that Reaper who only has a Wraith available. That's used it out of spawn. And Matrix, meanwhile, in the middle of the map, being used by Missin, and Panthera don't seem too injured, if anything, causing a lot of damage to Dreamers. And it's Panthera that walk away with map number 1. What a start to this series.
Oh my goodness, Ocean's 11 outdated. Give me more Ocean's Panthera. They absolutely heisted this off the back of the Arpen Junker Queen. 3 fights clutched out of nowhere. And I think maybe an equal number of 5-person rampages as well. Really seeing the openings. It's obvious that Panthera probably did a lot of scrimming against Dallas Fuel, saw what was being achieved with the conflux of both Junker Queen and the Symmetra to give the burst mobility. That's a real weakness to Junker Queen, not having that disengagement option or the ability to close gaps against Poke and really being able to paper over those cracks using the Symmetra and bringing out more pressure in the form of a Bastion to make sure people aren't always looking at that Junker Queen, and Arpen is taking the mental space that's made by that and paying so many dividends with it.
Well, the Queen checkmates the King of Rhines, but you gotta say, the Rampage, once a Rhine comp plays all stuck together like that, it's gonna work out at the end of the day. Panthera pull through on map number 1, but up next, we have a break. And after that, Dreamers have their choice of map. See you then. Welcome back, everyone, to the Overwatch League 8-pack knockouts. We have a banger. As an appetizer, get ready for the rest of the day, y'all. It's only 1:30 a.m. But I am as excited as can be. What a round 3 I think we got. It felt like a forever map on Lijiang.
Yeah, it's the never-ending story of Lijiang Tower. And unfortunately, the story looked a lot better for Dreamers when they were playing Orisa. Reinhardt potentially maybe a king of the past, but he's still a thing of the past. Main tanks, at the moment, not flourishing. Not flourishing. But hey, maybe we'll see some Winston as we go over to our hybrid map. I do believe that it's going to be Numbani. This was, of course, the pick of Dreamers. We've got ourselves a couple of subs happening. We do have not many for the side of Panthera. It's mostly happening on the Dreamers side, where Dreamers are making some big swap-ups. I believe 3 players are swapping, 2 players are swapping out, 1 player is swapping roles.
Yeah, so Dreamer out, Leaguer in, going for the off tanks. We're going to Numbani next, where Dreamer is really only playing Reinhardt. I've seen some Reinhardt cheats on that map before, but after, getting rampaged physically, mentally on Lijiang, maybe we gotta change things up. Leaguer, Orisa, and Diva was successful in Numbani before. Dart, first appearance in knockouts as a DPS, and look at that, sad. Doesn't have to be too sad being benched, he's being moved to the support role.
And when we see these DPS players move everyone to the support role, we all have the same thought, right? A new hit scan support has just dropped. Sad loves to play Soldier and other hit scans. We're likely going to be seeing the Alari come out of Sad here. Liga, I'm very excited to see the Orisa here, especially as potentially a counterplay to Arpen's Junker Queen. We talked about how the Junker Queen was less effective on Control Center in our previous round because it was a lot easier for the Orisa to shut down compared to the Ryan, who does struggle in a close-range battle against the Junker Queen and has no real means of mitigating her ult, whereas the constant threat of both the Javelin spin and the Javelin itself stunning the Junker Queen does mean she has to be a lot more judicious about when the Rampage can be used, rather than just seeing 5 people line up and go, oh, I'm going for that one, boys.
I like to see the cookery that Dreamers put up on Numbani. Last time I casted them, it was super fun. They had some Symmetra of Top Dragon moving people around. They had some Torbjorn War Soldier. Sad, I mean, was the soldier guy, but they revealed that ace up their sleeve already. They gotta put him in support jail for now, where maybe he'll wreck some faces on Alara. At least I hope so. Where Develop is usually the DPS guy who plays Alari, so Sad versus Develop, I hope it happens on Alari, because I want to see who's getting Giga Gap.
A Develop, of course, historically was a prodigious hit scan player picked up by Moon for the legendary Season 4 Shanghai Dragons roster, I believe, one that had Lip on it. Like, when you pick up Develop as a hit scan and you've got Lip on your team, Moon definitely saw a lot of potential in Develop as a budding hit scan player. At the time was mostly a Widowmaker as far as I know, so that flick scan aim definitely going to come up real hard here on the Alari. As we head over to Numbani, one of the things that you did point out, of course, is the shenanigans of a Symmetra on the defense here in particular, as well as the attack. Does allow for you to play a defensive Orisa here, who would usually be less effective, because it gives her the burst mobility to move between high ground without being stuck on long commutes, and actually being able to react to stimuli as they come.
You think it's a defensive horse, but if you watch Numbani on defense or offense, Leaguer was getting teleported into people who would then Javelin spin, Javelin hit people against the wall, Javelin attack, defend, and ruin people. It was insane how aggressive Leaguer was with the Symmetra who was moving him around. I'm so excited. They won this map against Rhodes 3-2. We'll see if that win streak keeps up now, obviously with a different roster. But I'm hoping we get to see more Top Dragon Symmetra.
Yeah, it's always good to see, like, a very smart player bring out the Symmetra, because, like, if you've got the strategic depth for good planning around teleports, you can really catch a team unawares, especially with something like an Orisa, even though we don't appear to be seeing it now. We're seeing Liga bring out the Sigma, which was actually one of the first heroes that brought Liga to prominence, I believe, previously on Team CC. Liga played quite a bit of the Sigma. This is, of course, a mainstay of many off-tanks. Not sure if this is real. This could be an interesting pedal platform raise here. No, we're just grabbing back Slays and go, you know what? I don't think we need Lucia for this one. Full comp swap over. Oh, is it old style? The old gods are still alive in Numbani land.
Yeah, this is a comp that Panthera have played before. I hope, like, rises to the occasion of Tracer. He's wasn't insanely impactful last time I saw him. Gotta be really consistent with those pulse bombs. And against a Baptiste, that's difficult to do with the immortalities that can just negate that for free with the cooldown. It'll be up to Becky to hopefully get support, whether with Slay TPing in, who seems to be TPing to help do rotate around. They're taking different angles, taking their sweet time now.
Oh, missing. Uses the outburst to actually go straight into the Winston. That needs to be used a little bit more like the whip shot of the Brigitte, I believe, to try and knock back the Winston on the engage. Great crunch from Panthera.
Took a while for Panthera to get their dominoes all set up, but it's Dreamers that got tumbled, and now it's Panthera who can, after all these trading blows, could maybe start to pressure this point. You got Liger at half health. Definitely should be in position for Arpen to get forward. Okay, there he is on the corner. Becky on an off angle on the right. Do above, ready to blink in if the supports get too close. Panthera have a good setup for the initial takes. One asleep onto Dart. Execution 5v4, 2 for Panthera. This should be winnable. Nancy does hit Sad. Not too much in a bad position. Arpen jumps up for heals. And Panthera should have this secured, but Dreamers are looking healthier as they had a chance to regenerate. And Duke gets caught out by Splash. There's the Nano from Develop onto Arpen just to chase down top. Dragon can't rotate back, has a bit of armor to do so, and maybe even support from both Sad and Missin. And somehow Dreamers are retaking.
They're simply too hard to kill. They can't get enough damage over onto Liga. That's a real problem with this composition. If you don't have the burst coming through from a focusing beam of Becky, how do you kill this Sigma? Because the Winston damage isn't enough. Oh, Slay could be hunted down here. Top Dragon, he's feasted! As Slay just went for a real haphazard TP.
Torbjorn is kind of that soft counter to Tracer with a turret that can always mark you where you're going. Do is constantly trying to go into that under the bottom door, and Slay's TPing to them, and Dreamers are smelling blood in the water. They're figuring out the strategy. They know Do is back there, who can grab mini pack obviously and be fine. Will Slay be able to TP to them? Does he want to? Because once that cooldown is down for teleport, you can't get out anymore. Dreamers, though, pop the Ant Matrix. Panthera start to hide. Arpen is primaling into a hallway, jumps on top of Dart, and manages to bat him away from the Mega. What control out of Arpen, who's got 2 kills, hoping to secure the final 6 here for Panthera. Arpen can't be stopped.
Oh, this truly feels like Arpen's serious right now. Everyone else is simply renting. A capitalist overlord of all of this space is certainly being made, getting an early pick onto Top Dragon as well by flinging him off the map. It's so hard to kill that Torbjorn during the Primal Rage as Winston, you take so much damage from the shotgun, but getting the Wombo combo off the map is exactly what the Doctor ordered. Dreamers are finally coming up to a couple of ultimates now. This Captive Sun is going to be interesting, of course. Remember that on the new patch, it can be blocked by the Winston bubble, so it's likely going to have to be forced out of Arpen first. And it can be cleansed as well by Slay.
And they have a lot of answers. They have options of their own, too, with the Duke. Be onto a soldier. Rissa's not a bad pick, too. It'll be up to really what opportunity arises there for Becky, as Panthera have gotten 3 pushes, but with Liger on the Orisa, this is going to be a tough anchor to remove. Becky deals with Torbjorn turret, so too has more freedom, but Becky decides to re-emerge in the middle of fire, and Dart unleashes with the tactical visor, and that sends Panthera packing.
Tactical visor must have come as a little bit of a surprise to Panthera. Potentially it was aided by the Captive Sun. We saw Missin use it, but not who was afflicted. Might well have grabbed that backline after forcing out a Suzu, maybe. And now Missin can play this off angle, and we can have this incredibly obnoxious wraparound defense from Dreamers if they decide to try and stay in here. There's plenty of mobility for Dart to try and get out, but for Missin it's going to be more of an issue. They could be cut off here by Do.
Ooh, Do looking for the pulse bomb up against Missin. Knows where the supports are, can keep them pressured out. Want to see if you can land his pulse bomb where Sad isn't located, so the immortality isn't a problem. Panthera, the fact that this fight is taking place here is so interesting. Panthera now duped to have a second Orisa just to bully Liger out of the way. The Ant Matrix though from Sad maybe gives some supporting fire for Liger to keep anchoring this card. With Becky out of form though, Panthera losing a lot of hope, a lot of at least frontline presence, although the damage looked pretty good once Becky got back into Echo form, and Dreamers can't hold on.
That one ended up being decided by the 2 versus 2. Dart and Missin versus Do and Slay. And Slay decided to go for the Immortality Field in the 1 versus 1. It was greedy, but in the end worked out as Dart went a touch too far to try and punish that one out. Becky swapped over now from the Echo onto the Bastion, trying to avoid the previous problem on point A of not having enough damage, and instead they're going to be able to tear through Arpen if he doesn't rotate his cooldowns effectively, or rather tear through Liga.
Yeah, Dart almost got killed by that pulse bomb splash. Dropped down to 1 tick. Good opportunity for Do. There's the Ant Matrix plus the Bastion. Dreamers don't want to answer the door to that. You're at the wrong address, buddy. But Panthera aren't making really much progress on the cart, even with such power behind that move. Now it's up to Arpen to go up against Liger, and you got the Captain's Son onto the Bastion. That's a lot of damage, and the Nano saves Becky, gets revenge against the Alari, and moves forward to clean up the fight once and for all for Panthera.
Oh, lovely play there from Becky, but also great reaction there. The contextual Nano from Develop thinking we just need to make sure our Bastion survives this, and if that's going to be the case, there's no way we lose. I do think that Dart at the moment might be over-focused on trying to chase Do around when you can't really get much of a good assassination as a Tracer against something like a healing pylon, and it does mean that Dart and Missin are getting a lack of uptime, actually fighting the front line of Panthera. That gives Becky and Arpen a lot of space to work with against Liga.
Great shots from Develop. See those mechanics, former DPS on display. Panthera too, this is a great composition for how flat this point of the map is. And Artillery is just on top of himself. Does he get it off? Becky gets stunned and might have put some initial damage into Dreamers. And the Amp Matrix plays beautifully by Slay. Funnels right into Dreamers. And Sad tried to respond with his own, but the Tactical Visor only gets 2. But it does weaken Panthera, who just might not be able to complete this push.
Yeah, the Dart off angle, once again paying dividends with that Tactical Visor. Excellent timing when it comes to those. And now being behind, you see that Becky is permanently aware of this, and this is trying to make a little bit of mental space by going for those early pokes. Good outburst, puts Becky down on the low ground and mitigates the tank form.
Top Dragon can't be too aggressive here with the type of healing at his disposal. Now Panthera, gotta be careful on taking multi-angle fights. Just like on Lijiang Tower, this was an issue. Top Dragon copies the Orisa, is hoping to get environmental kills here as funnels everyone from Panthera into an area as Develop hopes to protect them with the Captain's Son. But Terra Surge built up by Top Dragon gets Becky low enough for Dart to get the finish, and Liger goes for the second Terra Surge while they were low. What a wombo combo from Dreamers to hold Panthera short of C.
Oh, the double Terror Surge does so much against a slow comp like Panthera. They've got no mobility options to get away en masse. No speed boost for a disengage, no teleporter to try and move away at that point. And it all came down to an early pick as well onto Do. Dart's timing on these soldier flanks is unbelievably good. While he has been a little bit distracted a couple of times chasing a Tracer that really ended up fruitless, when he manages to find something with a Tactical Visor twice now, he's managed to grab a double with an ultimate that rarely gets value unassisted by something like a Nano or a Kitsune Rush. And this is an impressive debut for Dart, who is yet to play in the knockouts. Has played previously, I believe, for Dreamers, but thus far in the knockouts, we haven't seen much Dart.
Well, it's not a bad appearance for sure. Stopping Panthera when they had 2 minutes for siege. But this has been a cool setup. I mean, Panthera came with different combos, whether the Captive Son, the dupe with Becky, combining usually with the other Orisa. So, pretty far push. See if Dreamers can match that with a similar composition.
On the ceiling. Where are you going, friend?
Bit of goofy flanking. Won't be as easy on the attack here. And this is one of the things you alluded to earlier, Lemon. The teleport for the Orisa can make her into Peter the Die Forces here, which is traumatic to deal with for supports, but also allows for a good amount of momentum and mobility in order to really respond to any huge tanks that could come in onto your more squishy players if Top Dragon wants to try and go a little bit more aggressive. Like you pointed out earlier as well, Top Dragon is going to be having trouble with a lack of healing here, as long-range healing from Sad is not going to be ideal, and Missin has to play a medium range of that beam to actually heal the Echo.
But Dreamer is able to crawl their way up to that top left high ground. Good shield placement of Dreamers. And now it's up to the poke damage. How is Top Dragon gonna want to approach this fight? You want to wait for a weak target, so the focusing beam can obviously be profitable, but here's Arpen from behind, just shoving Dreamers off the high ground, hoping to displace them, and Top Dragon almost got also a focusing beam kill onto Arpen, and is so close to killing Do, who just doesn't want to go for Mega, thinks he can win the one-on-one. Now just dodging these Orisa primary fires. How is Top Dragon alive with 5 HP?
The beam of shame is used. Arpen just has to dash over towards the point. Oh, that's an excellent peel coming through from the Sigma, making sure that that Bastion duel is going to be unfairly going the way of Dreamers. That's a lot of damage coming through from Dart.
Oh man, I play some Bastion myself, and I don't get 2-3 Ks on this artillery like these guys do. They just find really great moments where the other team is clumped up. I mean, it was really valuable on Lijiang Tower when you had close situations and expected to get that much value on payload maps like this, but I'm a fan.
So he's going to have to try and control the territory here with the amplification matrix. We've seen how deadly these can be. In conjunction with things like the Bastion and the Pylon healing here does mean that you can essentially poke out of this zone for free, but you've also got to try and worry about the position of the car and not allow Dreamers too much free push here, as Liga is going to be moving up and just making sure that Panthera can't stay comfortable in this zone.
Arpen defending this well, focusing beam, almost gets Becky. Great healing coming out of Panthera's backline. Top Dragon just dupes to save himself. I thought he would have used the immortality to get himself rotated back towards his team, and he's really getting solo ulted, which is just going to put him back to his Echo form. So he does have a second life. Panthera can now use this moment to stabilize now that they have this 5v4. Top Dragon sent away. And there is that aggression out of Arpen and the Ant Matrix just to deal with Dart. Man, he is a target.
Absolutely eviscerated. Double support ults all on top of that Bastion. Liga here is going to be next to fall as well. Actually, he's able to get away. Plenty of damage going into a kinetic grasp. And it does mean that there's some extra cushion to try and work with. Captive Sun here is going to be an interesting ultimate, considering that mitigation from Panthera is going to be limited mostly to the javelin spin of Arpen. And if Arpen's not on the correct verticality here to try and deal with that, it could be a big opening for Dreamers to try and find themselves a couple of kills.
Dreamer's looking really weak, but quickly brought back up to health. Dreamer's using that just cover well, hoping to take control of mini pack room, and now know that Panthera at least is at that corner as a soldier, leaving Top Dragon with having to deal with him. Captive Sun from missing to remove that soldier. Not even sure if it did that much damage. Panthera, though, getting hit by the Gravitic Flux. And Dreamers ahead in this fight. They gotta deal with Arpen, though. It's a lot of armor that the Orisa has. Iggy is just such a tanky unit. Dreamers look like they're in a position 3v2 to cap this card. It should only be the supports to deal with, and that's all she wrote.
And this is going to be a lot of time to play with here, Lemon. 4 minutes to only cover 55 meters. And now, Panthera, they don't have that inherent advantage of a high ground to work with either. It's going to be far more fair in terms of a lateral battlefield that has to be worked with. Are going to be some harder corners to try and play with when it comes to that momentum. And neither team has some extra to try and get that burst mobility that we've talked about being such a buff for things like Orisas and Bastions. And Dark can also clear out any nooks and crannies using this artillery. But Panthera have a considerable ult bank to try and work through here for a long-term defense.
Oh, the artillery catches Do and Becky. Huge value for Dreamers. The box of victory is theirs. And there's Develop couldn't disengage in time. He got the Terra Surge hero play, and Dreamers wiped them off the floor. And there can recontest, but actually Becky's going for artillery, and this doesn't push Dreamers off the card. They get to the box of victory and take the map.
An unbelievable Dart double there. What a debut here in Knockouts for Dreamers with Darts. And that was supposed to be Panthera just being able to overwhelm Dreamers with a critical mass of ultimates. They had almost 5 available. And while, yes, it would have been unideal to try and use all 5 in that first fight when you're going up against such a massive time bank, you've got to win the first fight and get rid of momentum to do that. And unfortunately, they simply were not fast enough. And Dart, quicker on the trigger, wins the duel, and now Dreamer's going to equal us up 1-1. Flashpoint's coming up next. We saw Liga play a little bit of Doomfist here previously, playing some faster compositions. I am so excited to see what Dreamers bring to bear and maybe get a bit more about Doomfist, because last time it kind of slew.
And the strats worked out for Dreamers, kind of changing up their roster this much. Like 3 different players. Dart, first map on TPS, wins it. 100% win rate, by the way. Sad from Soldier, giving up those duties. Going to Flex, worked out well. And Liga on the Sigma leads them to victory. We're tied 1-1 with Panthera having map choice next. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everyone. Tie series between Panthera and Dreamers. We said it was going to be a banger of a series. It continues to deliver. Dreamers on their choice of map delivered a successful victory. We'll see what Panthera have cooked up.
Next up, we've got Flashpoint, of course, the newest addition to our competitive roster here. Suravasa and New Junk City are some of the options that are available. It feels like there's yet to be a real chrysalis in the meta, and there's still a lot of room for experimentation. We've seen Hungry Spark play the Winston here. We've seen plenty of Junker Queen, of course, from Redalis Fuel. Dreamers have played a little bit of Doomfist on Suravasa. There's been plenty of Diva as well from Liga in order to make sure that they can move quickly around the map and respond to the stimuli as they come up. But thus far, for Dreamers, it's been a fairly unsuccessful map type. They're 0-2, and Panthera did manage to sneak this one away in their previous matchup, I believe in a reverse sweep.
It's been fun to see how the comps have developed on Suravasa. There's so many points that are maybe more favorable for Brawl, some that require maybe more mobility around kind of the fights take place outside of the point, where maybe a Diva or a Junker Queen has been used more by some teams. Everyone is kind of finding their identity where so many comps can be played. For Panthera, it was Jasmine that came in, and looks like Arpen is staying in. So I guess not happy with the results last time, where it was a lot of Ramatra and Diva. Now Arpen being in may mean more Winston, which maybe more fluid dives is what they want.
And Arpen, of course, has actually shown a wide variety of hero proficiencies today. Previously, a lot of Winston and a lot of main tank, but also we've seen the Junker Queen come up big, also playing a good amount of the Orisa over on Nimbani. As a quick look at what every point is called for Suravasa. Make sure that you burn these into your brain so you don't get too confused when we bring up some random words like what are they yapping about? Well, what are they talking about? Well, this is what we're going to be talking about. Market is always the first point, same as New Junk City. Always starts with arena. You begin at the middle, and of course there are 2 spawn rooms for either side as well. One of them a little bit closer to the center in order to give better access to points D and B if you're on the left-hand side of the map, or points E and C if you're spawning on the right-hand side of the map from your current perspective. But everyone starts as far away as possible from the market to make sure there's plenty of time for everyone to chat up their strategies as they approach.
It's just the rotations. A lot of teams like to play Lucio just to get from one point to the other, because if you lose the one point, like usually you'll see a team put themselves in a great position to defend the next one and then kind of equalize the series from there. And we've seen the situations where teams think they have enough time to recontest and get there too late. I think it was Rhodes that choked like some map because they just like couldn't touch in time. Glad Becky is back in his seat in time for the map, because this is deciding who gets match point and who is one game closer to moving on in the lower bracket.
Dreamers, they are unbelievably hungry for it. Still, the glint in the eye here, the potential of going to Toronto to an Overwatch League Grand Finals as a contenders team. That would be precedent shattering, and Arpen's actually want to roll out with a Doomfist. I was excited to see this more from Liga, but not going to be the case this time. Instead, Liga going to be going with a tried and true meta pick of the Orisa. I imagine Top Dragon's going to be feeling some jealousy about this Genji here, but Genji actually has some excellent angles on market, playing on top of these little pedestals. They're very difficult to access for players that don't have vertical mobility options.
Man, if you thought Sombra was annoying for Doomfist, wait till Orisa gets in the picture. You got Fortify, Campy Displays, Javelin to just push the Doomfist away, Javelin spin pushes the Doomfist away. You gotta fight everyone around the Orisa and not the Orisa if you're Arpen, who's just taken so much poke, has not had an opportunity to jump past Liga, who's just been a fabulous anchor for Dreamers, capping the point first.
Yeah, Liga just stands there menacingly. And what can Arpen do? There's not too much to do on the Doomfist. Like you said, you've got to try and play past the Orisa, go after the more squishy players who play behind her and try and take advantage of the lack of mobility that Orisa has to try and deal with those particular assaults. Do is taking a lot of damage on these engagements. The missing gets found out by Arpen early. What a pick.
Well, Arpen deals with the turret. Now, because of this high ground, has access to the back line and has Du by his side. And now that they're healed back up, they collapse onto Top Dragon. incredible coordination by Panthera to again ignore the Orisa, kill everybody else, and it's successful, but it did take, 2 fights for that to happen. So just kind of like the syndrome of control, the snowball can accumulate into such a score, like 85% already for Dreamers.
Yeah, some would call that a back-to-front approach, going for those squishy heroes first and then leaving the tank to last, and back to front. Certainly working out a lot better here for Panthera comparing to Arpen facing down that Orisa. Now we're coming up towards the ultimate stage of this battle, and a combination of both either Dragon Blade or Visor with this Kitsune Rush could prove deadly for Dreamers if they use their immortality too early.
Arpen just surprising the backline there. Quick stun up punch, but didn't have his Genji, his dear Genji there. Have the Kitsune Rush to enable this blade. If they do wish, you're gonna see what damage they can put out with just the speed alone. Great engage, hold by Develop. Now that that's gone though, Dark fires back with the tactical visor. Arpen jumps in, thanks to the sound barrier to take his attention away from his backline. The captive son, plan B, unleashed by Dreamers as Panthera are in a sticky situation. And that's the Terror Surge from Liga that comes out. And both teams have suffered losses, but Panthera just slightly more. Duke could not finish the backline in time, so Dreamers will get the point back.
Arpen punching that lamppost is actually a heartbreaker. That really could have shut down Liga there and maybe made a bit more of an opening to play with. Do you want to try and risk the Dragon Blade here? Touching is going to be difficult to try and manage, and Panthera have actually backed off here, waiting for the next point. Looks like we're going to be heading southwards. It's either going to be Palace or it's going to be Gardens. And given the position here of Panthera, we can assume that it's going to be the Gardens, with Sad able to instantly try and claim some space here with the Amplification Matrix, but you still got to worry about that Dragon Blade. And your only real mitigation for this is going to be a lot of the Liga utility to try and control the position of the Genji.
Having the only ultimate that Panthera has, and you're just trying to get away from the Amp Matrix, who still getting a 1-to-1 trade. Not bad for Dreamers pulling the trigger first. Now the cap will be available in a few seconds. And you got this big ol' anchor of Orisa there. How are Panthera gonna deal that? It's all about ignoring it. The Molten Core buys so much real estate, even more. I mean, the whole country for Dreamers, as that Panthera tried to find their way around it. Dreamers still managed to cap the point. Now just have to chase the remnants of Panthera.
Liga simply stares down all who would move into this space, denying them any of that. Staggered was actually split off by that Molten Core that happened so early in the previous fight. Ended up on the high ground and was unable to really rejoin with the team, because it would have been too perilous a journey. And now Becky decides to actually leave in the lurch the Soldier 76 and move over to this Bastion instead to try and make sure that Liga is slightly more easy to dislodge.
Arpen jumps in, and Liga is right there in his face. Liga just plays so close to his team. Captive Son waits for Develop to pop the Suzu. Flying on in, targets Arpen. Some damage will be going into him, and that does splash onto his fellow teammates. So Develop, found by Liga as Dreamers, rush forward to find Panthera once they are split up. Meteor Strike from Arpen just to get him right onto the Mega Pack. But this has been a tough fight for Panthera to overcome.
They want to try and invest here with the Kitsune Rush. Actually, Developers too far away to actually deliver the Kitsune Rush right now. Moving back is Becky. That will give over a TP to make sure the Developer's going to be in position to maybe support this fight.
All right, Kitsune Rush jumping past Panthera while someone from Panthera has to cap. They are successful doing so. But Do and Arpen went deep in, and Dreamers quick disengage from the Kitsune Rush, and they don't give up any bodies for it. Now the re-engage off the Ant Matrix. Liga can just jump on in. No one wants to deal with that at close range. This should be a quick flip back over the Dreamers, and with Arpen missing, I don't see anyone from Panthera having a say about that. This will bring Dreamers to map point.
The Amateur just so valuable for getting Liga onto that point. The second of it is just sitting on point, got all 4 of the hooves on the ground. It is far too difficult to dislodge them, especially with a Doomfist. Arpen's going to swap over now onto the Junker Queen. Slightly better than the Doomfist against the Orisa, and we have seen Arpen find some clutches before as Dreamers find themselves on map point. It is going to be now or never for Panthera to try and turn this one around on their own map pick, and this would actually be the first Flashpoint map for Dreamers as well if they can close it out.
Such a close range map though, where see if the Junker Queen, how it will fare against Liga. It was the artillery to get Dreamers weak and maybe even scare them off the point. Arpen hoping to cap this first. The Liga is back to contest as the Terrorist Surge, but has to be careful how aggressive they are. The Molten Core, beautifully placed by Top Dragon at the entries of the door, gives Dreamers the cap first. Terra Surge, depending on how Panthera engage into this sound barrier, will eat up most of the Terra Surge damage, and Panthera unsuccessful with the approach, disengage, and Dreamers don't even seem that injured.
Oh, long-range thunder on developers going to be, there's a deficit in the healing, and Doo's going to pay the price. A quick reset coming through from Becky, but I love that choice from Liga to go for the Terra Surge there. We saw a huge momentum shift in terms of the engagement from Panthera. They have so many speed boosts between the Teleporter, the Lucio's speed, and the commanding shout of the Junker Queen, that you can stop that all in its tracks by giving over both the Terra Surge slow and the suck in onto all of those slower targets like the Bastion. Now only one fight stands between Dreamers and victory here, and only one ult really for Panthera to play with in form of the amplification measures. You can use it to buy space, but Liga can fairly easily tank that with a cooldown rotation.
I mean, Arpen can 1v5. I've seen him do it before. He
Seen
just
it do
needs
it.
a rampage. But he is just getting pressured. Headshot from Missin as Arpen was separated away from the flock. You got Develop combining the Amp Matrix with Becky. Just Panthera on different ages from each other. Captive Stun from Missin as Panthera made entry. And so many proc. And no one to proc the point for Panthera. Dreamers go to match point.
What a fight there from Missin, not only getting what seemed like a triple headshot onto Arpen to make sure there was no clutch capacity from the Junker Queen, but biding their time with the Captive Sun, waiting until the sun was setting on all chances of Panthera being able to cap in any clean manner, and grabbing everyone when they're together. 3 players hit with the Sunstruck, they simply blow up in the face of Dreamers, who managed to take their first Flashpoint map in all of Knockouts.
It's simply a comp gap. Yeah, I really wanted. I was on my knees praying and begging for Panthera to swap to Orisa. You gotta fight fire with fire. You thought that kind of main tank prowess of Arpen was eventually gonna concede, but this time not the case. That was gonna be the only answer to kind of claim that space against Liga, who was just so free, and they really believed in the Doomfist to hopefully, they've had one successful fight diving past that Orisa, but so many other failed attempts. Dreamers are on match point when Panthera had chosen Suravasa. There's only 2 choices at Flashpoint, but one final one coming up. We'll find out what happens on the other side of the break. Dreamers are on match point and one game away from sending Panthera out of knockouts and to end their summer stage. We decide this on our upcoming push map, which is chosen by Panthera.
Choice made. Survival needed. Map 5 is the desire of Panthera. Dada, of course, coming back in for Sad, or rather coming back in for Dart, as Sad has been moved back over onto DPS, or Sassad, as we currently we're having to move him around quite a bit because of the old role swaps. And yeah, Dreamer's a team that certainly have a lot of variability in their roster. Dreamer, of course, returning back in now, likely to play some more main tanks, maybe a touch of the Winston. Could even be that Dreamer is the preferred Orisa for this team. We have seen Orisa played by Liga previously on Colosseo. For Panthera, don't think there are any subs here, mostly just sticking to their guns. Not sure where Nice is at the moment. A little bit missing in action for knockouts. Do has been taking most of the aggro thus far for Panthera.
Yeah, Becky and Do have some nice overlap and a lot of dependence on Becky's Echo and providing that secondary Orisa, since Liga has been nice enough to provide that, and I think should continue sticking to it. If our pen is going to have such a strong preference towards the Junker Queen, maybe expecting some Lucio on the Esperanza map to kind of help close that gap. But Orisa, the way that they can use the Javelin to push that Junker Queen constantly away, force her to take a lot of poke before she can get that self-healing going, I kind of give the edge to Liga and friends.
Certainly so. It's been a bit of a brain teaser, trying to figure out how to get around the Orisa, not only for Panthera, but for all of your friends in ranked as well. Sometimes you just end up going up against an Orisa. You're like, oh, okay, guess I play Orisa, or maybe I lose. It's certainly a conundrum. I think that maybe you could invest in the Symmetra to try and get the burst mobility of the TP to get behind the Orisa and onto those squishies, but of course Orisa still can react very well to the teleporter by just pre-javeling it when you see the exit portal come up, or just being able to knock a load of people off the high ground as they come through using the javelin spin. I'll have to see what we're going for here. I do think that I'd like to see a bit more of the Arpen Queen. If you're going to go out in a blaze of glory.
No more Dart. More sadness coming in. But hopefully happiness, because he's on DPS. I like that there's just... We're entering an era where DPS are now taking over the support roles. Now they're going to be coming for the tank roles, the kids,
okay.
the life, the paycheck.
Fleta made sure that the tank players are safe for now.
Oh my god. You're horrible, but also right for that.
You're so real and also a really bad person.
Late night hours of casting. But Esperanza could be a short night. Morning, maybe day, for Panthera, depending on the results of this. Here we go, some more Bastion.
All right, Orisa versus Orisa, certainly a lot more geared towards the tank versus tank fight here are Panthera. The Symmetra really good at actually fighting the Orisa as well, as Orisa has no means of mitigating damage coming in from a beam. Save the Fortify. Javelin spin, it does nothing against the beam. On the other side, Top Dragon's going to be looking more at flank pressure using this Genji, but it's going to be very difficult against the Illari, whose pylon is going to make it very difficult to find an assassination.
Yeah, if you can catch her using her boost, then she'll be in a vulnerable position for a dive. But Becky on the bash tells me, I don't care about the Orisa, I only want to go Burr. And I've been so stoked to see Dreamer in this lineup. We've only seen him as this Rhine King, showing his flexibility on the Orisa. Kind of like
every king
Reinhardt's
needs his horse.
I know, it's kind of Reinhardt's distant cousin.
Reinhardt, but with a different melee weapon. Are you proficient in tridents? Arpen. Just gonna gather a little bit of a space here. This is a slight extension from Top Dragon. Oh my goodness, what a brave engagement there from Sad, but it does actually force Arpen off for high ground, which might make a little bit more space to operate here for the Sojourn.
You don't usually see Sojourns go for hugs like that. Just jumping into
melee
a
Sojourn
face like that. Dreamers with an initial push. And this can, with two Orisas mirroring. Yes, I wanted Arpen to match that in the previous map, but you get into these stalemate situations where neither Orisa can effectively remove the other until one's hand is really forced, like here, the symmetric TP from Do. But because it's right on the edge, you're just so easily pushed off. It did you know, force out the Amp Matrix. So that's one less ultimate that Panthera have to worry about.
Yeah, forced out a lot of response actually there from Dreamers. That might turn into a slight bit of an issue. Becky, oh, what a play there from Dreamers to actually get in front of the window. Does lose his life for it, but now you might see some dash resets coming through.
A lot of
ults.
Amp Matrix, Captive Stun gives Panthera the W very end, but with only remnants of a team left. Dragon play 1v1. He said, come at me, bro. Dashes in. Didn't see that he had friends with him. I thought Top Dragon had that in the 1v1. They didn't respect it.
Well, you just went in to try and melee Illari and like, my gun has a sword on it. My sword is better than yours. It's also a gun. Panthera now have quite a few resources to try and make do with here. Becky's artillery strike is, of course, going to be a little bit less effective against the permanent speed boost of Dada. But if Dreamers are caught lacking, it could be an easy frag.
Oh, getting missed so low in the immortality. Just in case, well placed. Not now an important cooldown out of Dreamer's hands. Panthera with bridge control. And even more push because of Top Dragon beating last fight. Terra Surge. Zone out the card, forces out the sound barrier of Dada as Dreamers have a moment, an advantage that they can work with, and they bring out all the DPS ults, including just displacing that Bastion of Becky, the biggest threat from Panthera with the Javelin. And Top Dragon, once he gets in your face, he's a scary guy. But at the end, it's Dreamers back on the bot.
No Slay triple here. Yeah, there we go. Finally taken down by Missing. That was a crazy combo from Top Dragon as well. Cancelling the reflect of a Javelin into a nice little combo on Arpen. Dreamer has been playing some interesting Orisa where it's just like, I'm going to kill your Bastion. I don't care if I die. Becky must die is the current ethos for Dreamer. Control of the point here is going to be very much confirmed by the Terra Surge. Dreamer could use this to actually get the cap if they charge up to 500%.
Arpen wanted to contest the forward spawn, but Panthera were just not believers. They were just hoping for 5% more of this Amp Matrix, which could have been enough to force, at least have a win condition to push Dreamers back from that forward spawn, but now losing Arpen is losing a lot of real estate.
Yeah, Dreamer also gets to hang on to that Terra Surge as well. Teleporter taken, moving in towards the back line. He's going to leave Do alone, but of course, Dreamer still has options. Panthera have both support ultimates to work with here. Remember that the Captive Sun can be eaten by Dreamer if they do get close enough. They're leaving him behind. They've wrapped around.
Hungry Javelin spin. Just the way they teleported out and just they all left. Now Dreamer's up by 2. Artillery from Becky just can't slow down this push from Dreamers. 80+ percent, well, meters, I should say. And even the late stagger onto Becky. This is getting into dangerous territory for Panthera.
Yeah, excellent rush there as well from Dreamers, just rotating around the bot and not allowing it to be taken from their grasp after that TP, using it for cover. Now Panthera, they've made a wholesale swap from an anti-tank composition to playing these far more effective flankers. Of course, not going up against an Illari means there's no pylon to deal with. There's a Terra Surge.
Oh, double. Oh, one. With all the immortalities and the pylons and the objects around the map being taken
A
out.
murder and some property damage.
Insurance is gonna hear from this. Dreamers with the insurance push to 122 meters plus on match point. Panthera have to defend this or their season is over. Arpen bulldozing his way, playing alongside Du. Well, there's an Amp Matrix in Panthera's face, and Dreamers had begged the ultimates for this very moment. When they're able to save that, all thanks to Dreamer. The Terra Surge, the one to rule them all, and the sound barrier just to laugh. Dreamers take the series 3-1.
Unbelievable dominance on Esperanza. This was exactly where Panthera wanted to go, but Dreamers were more than happy to play it. And showing that Dreamer can come in and play the Orisa, and it's a real good pickup for a main tank player like Dreamer. The space control, unbelievable. And unfortunately for Panthera, this is the end of their knockout run, but it's one step closer to Toronto for Dreamers. A man's dream does not die. It continues to breathe, continues to respire. The road will continue to be walked. The Dreamers, one more step along it.
And with, you wondered how were they gonna do without EasyHon, without Spectra, when rosters get picked by the vultures of Owl. You wonder what is left for the team to profit from. And what upgrades, not even upgrades, just what replacements I should say. Like Top Dragon, one of the most sought out players in contenders. Dreamers seem to be doing just fine and are very proud of how many people they're able to promote to Overwatch League and how many more there could be to come as they move on to the lower bracket semi-final.
Still a long way to go, but you take it one game at a time, one opponent at a time, one map at a time, and maybe there is much more to do here. Unfortunately for Panthera, like we said, this is the end, but I think that we've all managed to get some RPen hype over the course of today. But when it comes to player hype, who am I to not talk about missing? The man who shut down RPen's potential to clutch on Esperanza and had such a consistent performance today across all of the flex support picks, especially the Alari, and playing very well on the bat to add at the end of Esperanza there, managed to actually pick off the enemy bat multiple times. Missing has really been a bit of a terror. I think one of the few members of Dreamers who was an original from the beginning of the year, still remaining. And you know what? Dreamers have been rewarded for their faith in Missing and keeping him on the roster as long as they have.
Yeah, the timing on the animations is just when Panthera are committed have been a really critical part at turning fights. Just great use of the movements too on Alari to escape these dive situations. You know, there's a nano wisdom in your face, and Missing lives through all of that. It's been tough to see, you know, captive stun value from new Alari players in the league, and Missing has showed us that this could be a powerful ultimate. And look, he just hits random headshots like that. I remember him hitting RPen too when he was in Junker Queen to win that fight. Missing, you don't often get to see player of the matches to supports, and Missing has made an incredible case. Got the majority of the votes from our broadcast team.
Yeah, just so many limbs being contributed to, and of course the healing being delivered on point as well. Not just a healer, a full-on support. And actually, like, things like this, like forcing RPen away and actually turning that into a free camp without having to use the Terror Surge is a major economical boon that you get from a player like Missing who's got the tactical depth to realize when just the Amp Matrix is going to be enough.
The summer stage knockouts continue. We have one more match for Group A. We said goodbye to Panthera, but who is going to meet Dreamers on the other side? It's Rhodes versus Poker Face. That's going down next. And of course, we have another side too of Group B with Charge and Dynasty. Dragons versus SPG. For sure saying goodbye to at least one Overwatch League team today. So we're gonna see you on the other side of this break for our next match, Rhodes versus Poker Face. You won't want to miss it.
Might also have a bonus interview. Potentially. There it is. Have fun, Unknown.
안녕하세요.
네, 탈락하는 팀이 발생하는 첫 번째 경기였던 만큼 양 팀 모두 다 간절했을 것 같은데요. 중요한 매치에서 승리하셨습니다. 승리 소감 먼저
A
들어볼게요.
victory on a day where it really mattered. How do you feel about it?
일단 이겨서 좋고요. 저희가 스크림 때 성적이 잘 안 나왔었는데 대회 때는 잘 나와서 좋았어요.
Well, first, I'm really happy we get to fight another day, and we were kind of worried because scrims were a little bit worrying, but we're good that we won when it mattered.
선수 교체도 있었고요. 이 팀 내 포지션 변화도 있었습니다. 세드 선수가 DPS에서 서포터로 이제 변경을
We saw some player swaps and even some position swaps from you on Numbani. What was the reasoning for your swap to support?
메타 자체가 힐러가 잘해야 되고 피지컬이 좋아야 되는 메타라서 딜러인 제가 힐러 쪽 자리를 좀 맡은 것 같아요.
So we believe that in this meta specifically, we need supports to be gifted mechanically, and so as a hitscan DPS, I thought I filled in that role really well.
수라 바사에서는 또 다시 DPS로 돌아오셨습니다. 그때에 대해서 여쭤보고 싶은데요. 상대의 판테라는 기동성이 굉장히 좋은 조합을 들고 왔습니다.
We saw you come back to the DPS role in Suravasa. I have a question about Suravasa. Panthera brought up a really mobile comp, and, well, they kind of outmaneuvered you. How did you manage to win the fights despite being outmaneuvered by the opponent?
각을 많이 벌려서 계속 사이드로 몰아 넣어가지고 이겼던 것 같아요.
I think it was more about the angles. Yes, they outmaneuvered us, but we made a lot of the angles and forced them into positions that we had better angles to shoot them rather than them having better angles on us.
내일 경기도 준비하시게 되었습니다. 하루 남은 지금의 각오 마지막으로 들어볼게요.
Like you said, you live to fight another day, and you have a match tomorrow. How do you kind of will prepare for that match?
이기기까지 저도 끝까지
We'll just
응원하도록
definitely
하겠습니다.
prepare to win.
감사합니다.
And that's the end of the interview. Back to you, Jen.
네, 지금까지 드리머즈의 새드 선수
Thanks
인터뷰
so much, Unknown. How could I forget about Sad? You know, they were just so eager to jump out of the chair, but I'm eager to watch more of them.
I am eager to see a little bit more as well, Lemon. I mean, how could I not be when they are preparing to win tomorrow? That's the kind of real strategic flexibility that really makes my analytical brain go ticking. However, if you want some more analysis, some more strategy, stay tuned. We've got another match coming right up. Don't go anywhere.